Hello coders, I'm Matt Landers and I'm here to talk about CSS Animations. Now, we had someone ask a question on one of our lectures and said, hey, you talked about animations in this video, but I don't see where the lectures and labs and things are in the course. And they're exactly right. We totally messed up and missed animations. How can we do that? Animations are the most fun part of CSS. So let's go ahead and dig a little bit into CSS Animations, and I'm currently working on lectures and labs and all that that'll make their way into the course, but I wanted to give you something, a little taste that you could start playing around with now. So let's dig in and create some animations. So all I have on the screen right now is just a little setup that I did. It's got Bootstrap, it's got a header on there, and then it's got a blue box. The blue box is what we're going to animate first. So let's go ahead and do it. So this is the HTML. It's pretty straightforward. We're just going to do our animation right here. This animation's container basically just takes up the whole screen and puts the box in it. Don't really need it, but since the box is absolutely positioned, but just, I love containers, you know. So let's create our animation. So there's two pieces to creating an animation. One of them is setting up the keyframes. Now the keyframes don't do anything by themselves, but they define what the animation is actually going to do. So let's start with that. So we do @keyframes. So it's a similar syntax as media queries. And I'm going to create a bounce animation for this box. So I'll say bounce, and we're just naming it right here. So you just name it whatever you want, just like any other class, but we're not going to use this particular thing in the HTML. We're going to have to create a style that actually uses this animation. So what we can do here is we can say like 0%, 5%. We can put what we want the state to be at any percentage along the path of the animation, but there's also a little shortcut where we can just do from and to. We're not going to get into any complex long animation here, so it's going to be pretty straightforward. We just want to bounce. So we want to go from where we are right now, down and then up, just over and over and over again. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a transform, and we're going to translate the Y. Now if you use this, this will take into consideration hardware acceleration for your animation. So it should run smoothly on mobile and anywhere that you put it, which is cool. We're going to start out with where we're at now, so 0 pixel change. And then we want to go to, we're actually going to go down first. So this is kind of backwards. Actually, I won't do that because that'll be really confusing for you as we do this. So I'm going to set the margin down a little lower so that we can just start from 0, and then we're going to go up. So we're going to say transform, translate Y, and we'll go up 250 pixels. Now to go up, since we're on the Y, we're just going to say 250 there. That's going to move us up in the upward direction. So think of it as a grid. Boom. We're going to go up 250 pixels. Now we need a class that we're going to put onto our element, so our div, that's going to make it use this animation. So I'm just going to call it bounce with a lowercase b. And then I'll say animation, bounce, and all of the IntelliSense is in here for you in Visual Studio Code, which is cool. So you can see all the things that you're able to do. And now I'm going to use everything explicitly so you know what the options are here. So the direction that we're going to do is alternate. So we want this animation to run over and over and over again. We could say that we want it to go forward, so from to to would be normal, forward. We could go in reverse from to from, but we want this to just alternate. And then how long do we want it to take? So the duration we can do in milliseconds or seconds. I'm just going to start out with a half a second, and we'll see how fast that looks. We also want to do the fill mode to be both. So we want it to hold its state after each motion. Since we're iterating, it's not as important, which speaking of that, we need an iteration count. We're going to do infinite. And let's just see what this does. So if we go over to our HTML, I've already got the bounce class on here. So you just want to make sure that that's on there. And we'll go back and run it. All right, there we go. So it's starting down a little bit there, and it's bouncing, but it's kind of bouncing backwards, right? It should kind of stop at the bottom and then slow down at the top and then speed up as it goes back down. So let's fix that. So if you've done any type of animations and stuff, you've probably seen some timing functions like a ease in, ease out. We're going to ease out on this one since we're starting. Actually, we should ease in on this one, I believe. Let's see what happens. There we go. Now we're bouncing. So that's pretty cool. Really quickly with no JavaScript or anything, we've just defined an animation. So let's just go through it one more time so that you understand what's happening. But let you see it for a minute because, I mean, animations are so cool to watch. Oh, yeah. All right. So basically, we have our keyframes, and we're using a transform here. And you can look that up on NDN if you want to see all the different possibilities here. But we're going to do one more with it as well to show you something else that we can do. And basically, we have a translate Y. So we're translate allows us to move things along the X, Y, and Z axis. So we can flip things around and rotate them if it's Z, and Y goes up and down, X goes left and right. So that's happening there. And then in our animation, in our class, we're going to find the animation that we're going to run, and then we want to tell the browser how do we want it to run. The direction that we want to run is we want it to alternate. So we want to go from to to from to to from. That's how we see that bouncing happening. The duration is 0.5 seconds. So this is cool. You can play with this. Like I can do 1 second or 0.1 seconds. And now it's a really fast. Wow, it's crazy. You could go really slow, like we're on the moon or something like that. It's like 5 seconds. Whoa. We won't sit through that whole thing. But we'll just go to 5 seconds. That seems like a pretty cool bounce right there. Do something now. Okay. All right. And then the fill mode, we don't really have to worry about this one, I don't believe, since we're iterating. Yeah. So it's not making any difference here. I'll show you what that does in the lectures as we go. But basically, if you have an animation that only runs once, it'll do its motion and then it'll reset back to where it was. And if you set the fill mode to forward or both, it will stay where it is at the end of the animation rather than resetting. So if we weren't doing an infinite loop here, then that would be important, but it's not in this particular case because we're doing an infinite loop right here in our iteration count. Now, we also have an animation timing function, and this is what really makes it look like it's bouncing. If we didn't have this, it would just kind of go up and down and not really have that, you know, kind of bouncing motion that we have there. Like if I change this to ease out, it'll look like it's bouncing upside down, essentially. See there? That doesn't look right. So we do ease in. And that'll depend on if you're starting at the top or the bottom, whether you need to ease in or ease out. All right, so that's cool. So that's our bounce. Now let's do another one, and we'll do it on our H1 here. So I have grow here. So let's create something where when we hover over H1, it grows and gets bigger. Actually, let's do this different. Let's put a button under here because I think this actually makes way more sense. Let's do a button, and we'll say like sign up. Let's say we have a sign up button up here, right? And now we've got this button, and we'll put grow on it. Because you may want somebody, whenever they hover over a button, to grow so they really notice, like, oh, this is the button that I'm supposed to be clicking. You know, some people, they just don't get it. They don't understand clicking and buttons. All right, so let's do this. So let's create a keyframe, and we'll call it grow. And when we grow, we are still going to use transform. Cool thing is here on the animations, you can do whatever you want. You could change the margin, you could change the font color, anything like that. It's kind of cool if we start changing the colors and stuff. Actually, real quick, because this is awesome, I want to show you this. So what if we go from our background color, which is currently this, to like background red. Now watch. Look at that. Oh, it's going too fast. Now I'm getting sick here. Let's go to 5.5. Now we're changing colors and we're bouncing. So anything in our animation that we have is going to happen. It's going to, that timing is going to happen between the two things that are going on there. So that's pretty neat. So now that we know how that works, when we create our grow animation, we can take that into account. So we're going to say grow. We're going to say from. The state that we're going to be at in the beginning in this one is going to be scale 1. So scale is a way to transform the scale, like how big or small something is. And it's a multiplication factor. So 1 means that it's just going to be whatever it is right now. And then we're going to go 2, and we'll transform scale 2. So we're going to do 2 times its current size. All right, and now we got to create our class. So we'll say animation. Well, I'm not going to do the shortcut. I'm going to do it all out here. Animation duration. This needs to be pretty fast. So let's do 0.25 seconds because we just want it to kind of pop and grow. And then our animation fill mode is going to be important here. We just want to do forwards so that it stays in its state. And I'll show you how that works. And then our animation iteration count is going to be 1. That should be default. So let's see if this is working. So when we hover over, nothing happens. Why is that? That's because grow, we need hover here for 1. And now let's see what happens. Boom. Look at that. Now when I come out, you see how it kind of pops back? Now if I didn't have the fill mode on here, let's see what would happen. So the fill mode, I take it off. Still works. In some cases, it would just pop back to where it was. But in this particular case, the forwards works just fine. So we didn't really have to specify that. And there we go. We can also add an easing function in here, so we could ease in. Now it's popping. So now see that fill mode, I must not have refreshed before, but that fill mode is messed up. So it's getting to its 2x size and then it's resetting back. So I need to add that fill mode. So animation fill mode, forwards. And now we should be good again. So whoop, getting big. So this is cool. So we can start chaining these animations together. We can use JavaScript to make them happen whenever we click. It's going to use all hardware acceleration here too whenever we're using transforms and animations rather than using JavaScript to kind of move things around ourselves, which we could manually just move things around, scale them, make them bigger or whatnot, but it's a little more efficient to let the browser handle that, and it can hardware accelerate things whenever it needs to. So animations are awesome. A lecture is coming, going to break all this down with some labs, some drills, some fun stuff. So be on the lookout for that. But for now, go ahead, start playing with animations. And then I'm going to come back with another video on transitions, which are even easier than animations this week. So be on the lookout.